context on this. So since today is really about the allegory of the cave, how many people in here have actually read these pages before? Like, this is the most famous metaphor in all of philosophy. In what context did you read this? What did you read this in?
DST class.
I mean, did it have a theme? Was it like
the theme of, perception versus reality.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was that whole idea, even in a philosophical sense.
Good, good. How about you? You said you read it?
Yes.
What?
Senior year of high school.
And what was the context? It was just a survey.
Like world literature.
Yeah. Okay. Folks.
I read it my junior year of high school, and I'm pretty sure we were at the same time as Invisible Man in like Enlightenment.
Enlightenment. Yeah. Any?
I read it in a utopia class, in literature and politics concepts.
Yeah.
I think transverse reality and what we can believe.
And maybe what is it good for us to believe?
Yeah, what is it?
Yeah.
More along those lines.
Yeah.
Mine was all around the same context a little bit, but it was in a religion class, in a Catholic religion class, and we just try to figure out where is our place and how do we believe and what do we define and how do we believe.
You want to come back?
Yeah, also, just remember, it was in the context that right afterwards we read 1984 and the Brave New World. So it's kind of like
It goes back to us.
utopia context.
Yeah. Utopia, dystopia.
We read in a politics course where the focus was much more on like the Guardian and the construction of the polis, but then we sort of also touched on the other parts of it.
Yeah. And I mean, this is my thing, is this allegory gets used in so, like, people generally are familiar with the fact it exists, even if they haven't read it, and it gets used in so many different contexts. And that I like to dedicate some time specific to it within Plato's context, because sometimes it's good to at least know what Plato was trying to say, or at least think of it along, like what was Plato trying to think? How is this being used? In the words of Socrates, how is this being used, and what's its role in this particular text? And I believe it actually touches on all these things. I think the reason why this metaphor is so rich is because, in a lot of ways, this entire book, this entire argument hangs on this moment, right? It all hangs on this moment. And it hangs on this moment because this is really about the concept of paideia. And I think I've raised this up a little bit. When I say paideia, have I talked to you folks about that here? What is paideia? Have you heard of like paideia schools, like in your home school districts, like K through 12? Have you ever heard of paideia schools?
How do you spell that?
P-A-I-D-E-I-A. Paideia is the Greek word for education. But it's not education like, as you'll see, education for them was a very holistic kind of deal. Because it was about orienting the soul, but the soul has 3 different parts and all this. It's a very complex thing, takes a long time. So paideia is more complex than just like theory of education, right? It's more complex than that. And that this allegory really sits at the bottom of it. So we have to remember that the reason why, first of all, this was being talked about in this text, and it goes right to the first line of the chapter, is this is a metaphor for the educational system that the guardians are supposed to go through, and why that educational system is good, why it's supposed, what it's supposed to achieve, and how it's supposed to achieve it. Now, we want educated people to be able to tell the difference between reality and falsity. We want them to be able to play some sort of role in leading our community to be whatever the best it can be, its best possible order or something. There's all sorts of ways that one can draw off of that. That's why the education, talking about the education system, allows itself, right, to lend itself to all these different conversations. Right? But I want that to stay in your mind as we're going through it, that this is really about defining, in a lot of ways, how you move from being citizens to being leaders, and what the obstacles are, and what the struggles are, and making that particular kind of motion. And why things like philosophy, doing what we're doing right now, right? Drilling down really hard on something like Plato and Socrates would be important for that process. So I think the best way to start this off is actually to get somebody to start reading this, and we'll go through this, just a page and a half basically. And I'll stop us at various points and highlight different pieces about this particular process. I Let's see. Since I want to capture this on here. Can you go ahead and read for us, and then I'll just kind of flag you as we go through. Let's go. You have the same as we do, right? So page 187. I mean 180, bottom 186.
What's next?
Yep.
Next, I said, compare the effect of education and of the lack of it on our nature to an experience like this. Imagine human beings living in an underground cave-like dwelling with an entrance a long way up, which is both open to the light and as wide as the cave itself. They've been there since childhood, fixed in the same place, with their necks and legs fettered, able to only see in front of them because their bonds prevent them from turning their heads around. Light is provided by a fire burning far above and behind them. Also behind them, but on higher ground, there's a path stretching between them and the fire. Imagine that along this path a low wall has been built, like the screen in front of puppeteers above which they show their puppets. I'm imagining it. Then also imagine that there are people along the wall, carrying all kinds of artifacts that project above it. Statues of people and other animals made out of stone, wood, and every material. And as you'd expect, some of the carriers are talking, and some are silent. If a strange image you're describing, and strange prisoners. They're like us. Do you suppose, first of all, that these prisoners see anything of themselves and one another besides the shadows that the fire casts on the wall in front of them? How could they, if they have to keep their heads motionless throughout life? What about the things being carried along the wall? Isn't the same true of them? Of course. And if they could talk to one another, don't you think they'd suppose the names they use apply to the things that they see passing before them? They'd have to. And what if their prison also had an echo from the wall facing them? Don't you think they'd believe that the shadows passing in front of them were talking whenever one of the carriers passing along the wall was doing so? I certainly do. Then the prisoners would in every way believe that the truth is nothing other than the shadows of those artifacts.
Okay, stop right there. What's he trying to tell us so far?
I believe like the truth is like based upon like the shadows and like what an image gives off per se, I guess. What you can see.
More on this.
It's sort of like everything we perceive with our senses that we see right in front of us might not be the actual truth. And how do we really know what we're seeing is the actual, like, the reality, as opposed to some shadow on the wall?
This goes specifically to your appearance, perception, reality kind of problem. He needs to problematize right away. Remember, this is a relatively radical move, that which is most available to the senses is probably false. That's a radical piece just in and of itself. Our senses are supposed to be telling us something about our environment. And we might even actually be being deceived by them. Let's continue. Why don't you go ahead and continue? Should be yes. Consider then, I guess.
Consider then what being released from their body and cured of their ignorance would naturally be like if someone like this came to pass. When one of them was freed and suddenly compelled to stand up, turn his head, walk, and look toward the light, he'd be pained and dazzled and unable to see the things whose shadows he'd seen before. What do you think he'd say if we told him that what he'd seen before was inconsequential? But that now, because he's a bit closer to the things that are, and he's turned towards things that are more, he sees more correctly. Or to put it another way, if we pointed to each of the things passing by and asked him what each of them is, and compelled him to answer, don't you think he'd be at a loss in that he believed that the things he saw earlier were truer than the ones he now didn't show? Much truer. And if someone compelled him to look at the light itself, wouldn't his eyes hurt? Wouldn't he turn around and flee towards the things he's able to see, believing that they're clearer than the ones he's being shown? He would.
Okay, stop right there. Where has he? What's his argument moved to now?
So that like even if you're released from this illusion and you see the truth, you're not so much going to believe it because it's contrary to everything you believe and like accept it as reality for your whole life. So it'd be really startling.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say maybe that most of humanity is trapped there, and they're going to sort of remain trapped there because they don't want to see what, like, sort of beyond what they've been seeing their entire life. That there's sort of, that only the exceptional are going to continue to move out of the cave.
Well, I mean, I think we get to this question of what happens when he goes back into the cave and kind of what the masses are willing to accept. But just on the individual, like, steps towards enlightenment level that we're still on, the fact that there's pain involved with this, in the adjustment. Which is true. I mean, if you go out and look at the sun, it's like, whoa. Right? So that it's physiologically painful. Like when you're sitting there on Sunday night reading this stuff, it's like, damn. Right? It's physiologically painful. Right? That the road is painful in and of itself. And that the truth, so even if it's revealed to you, bam, you're not just going to accept it because you've been conditioned, right, with the shadows. Like that's still the norm for you. So there still has to be, even after the truth begins to be, let's say, revealed to you, there still has to be a process by which you come to accept it for what it is, which is also a part of shedding the false norms that you've been swimming around with before this moment. Right? So that's why I say it's a process, and it's a process that's got a lot of pieces, and that's not comfortable, and it's not fun. Kevin, you want to continue?
And if someone dragged him away from there by force, up the rough, steep path, and didn't let him go until he had dragged him into the sunlight, wouldn't he be pained and irritated at being treated that way? And when he came into the light, with the sun filling his eyes, wouldn't he be unable to see a single one of the things now said to be true? He would be unable to see them, at least at first. I suppose, then, he'd need time to get adjusted before he could see things in the world above. At first, he'd see the shadows most easily, then images of men and other things in water, then the things themselves. Of these, he'd be able to study the things in the sky, and the sky itself more easily at night, looking at the light of the stars and the moon, than during the day, looking at the sun and the light of the sun. Of course. Finally, I suppose, he'd be able to see the sun, not images of it in the water or some alien place, but the sun itself, in its own place, and able to study it. Necessarily so. And at this point, he would infer and conclude that the sun provides the seasons and the years, governs everything in the